Hey everybody, we're going to be trying something that I have never done before, and that is rebuilding the steering gear. These things are expensive if you buy them new. I found a steering gear rebuild kit for fairly cheap, so we're going to give it a whirl. Never done this before, haven't looked it up. We're just going to fly by the seat of our pants and see what happens. So I'm going to save these lines. I would like to replace them just because they're ugly. Just massaging it back and forth, try to get some of that fluid out. It sounds so gross. This is almost similar to this noise that Zane has started making. You know, kids will start to make random noises as they're just going throughout their day. It almost reminds me of this noise that he has started making that will absolutely drive you up a wall. Alright, so it looks like neutral is in this position right here. So that's what I'm going to go off of. So I'm going to get it hard that direction. This is 1 3/16 inches. I don't have 1 3/16. Well, let me look at one more spot. So I'm going to hope that I can break it loose with this little wrench. If not, no, that ain't going to work. Nothing a little bench grinder and 1 1/4 will take care of. Now to pull this sucker off. I don't see any orientation markers on this, so I'm just putting a little file notch in on the arm and on the shaft to help me line this thing back up when I go to put it back together. Hey! Victory! No, I don't want to touch it for 3 hours. This right here is a 12.7/16. Hopefully this side, it's been greased up quite well by the car, so hopefully it comes right off. So the instructions said to go after this guy first. That's what we're going to do. So it says to rotate this plate until you can see the gears. Then it says center the gears up, or center the gear up with a pitman shaft. This is the pitman shaft. Center that gear up. And that makes sense because it won't clear the housing otherwise. And then gently tap it out. I see. There's a hole right here. Mine's mostly covered in mud. There's another snap ring right here. It says to get the end near that hole, which mine is already there. So there's a big old snap ring right here. We're gonna if yours isn't in the right spot, rotate it around until the end of the snap ring is in that hole. Like I said, mine's already there. You know, I've had people ask me, well, how do you know how to do all this stuff? You can't be afraid to just try something. The way I'm approaching this steering box, steering gear, whatever you want to call it, is if I break it, oh well, I'll buy another one. Because if I couldn't rebuild it, what would I be doing? Buying a new one anyways. So what's the worst case scenario here? I waste a little bit of time. I get to learn how one of these things works, how it's set up. I get to examine the condition of this one. Who knows what you get when you get a remanufactured one? You know how sometimes they're just trash. Okay, we got that out. Now, it says rotate the stub shaft, which is this other long shaft, to the full left turn position. To force the end plug out of the housing. Thank you. If y'all ever want to donate rags, just let me know. I'll send you my address. Yep, I see it's coming out. And there she is. End plug removed. I'll be darned, it's got a big old... Okay. Now, so you got a stub shaft, worm shaft, and then you have the rack piston. And that has a bunch of balls in it. I think I was supposed to do that. All the balls fell out. That's going to be fun to reassemble. Let me tell you. I'm not sure how it's sitting there telling you remove the piston. There's a lot of gunk in here too. So the instructions, I don't know what they're calling this thing. It was very confusing. The reason it took me so long to figure it out how to get this off, it looked like it was talking about something else. But anyways, guess this nut sets the preload for the end bearing. There's a thrust bearing at the bottom of that shaft. So mark the position before this comes off. So that's a lock nut. Okay, now it makes more sense. So this is that thrust bearing that it was talking about. There's got to be a seal right there. In the instructions, it doesn't go that far. It says don't take this part apart. So it does not talk about this. You know what? That's that snap ring that I was trying to take out earlier. So we need to get that out somehow, so that I can replace that seal. Okay, now before I forget where all this stuff goes, we're going to put it back together. But first I wanted to take a look at this bearing. I just didn't know where I could take it off from. Yeah, it looks like I can just pound that out. Feels fantastic. Like it's got some nice and tight seals on there. Very good. Now, my kit did not come with a new thrust washer or thrust bearing, so I will be reusing this one, which, like I said, everything looks fine in here. Now it says to line this up with that little notch right there, and it says to install this as one piece. So that is exactly what I am planning on doing. Oh, wait a minute, I missed an O-ring. Please hold. says to install it as a set, but I don't know about all that. Oh, okay, I can. So I marked it when installing. We just got to that tight point, and it's right where it should be. So now we'll put this back on. And since that was marked, it's in exactly the same position that it was. Okay, I'm feeling mildly successful about this so far. I really like it. So we've gotten all those parts replaced. I still have a lot of parts left, huh? Let's see what else we can do here. Okay, so now we're going to replace this side. But I want to look at something else first because I have this feeling it's going to create some dirt on the inside of this thing. And I want to be able to clean all that stuff out. So I'm going to try to get all these seals and everything out. It looks like my pump was dropped at some point a long time ago. It's all rusted over, but there's a ding in it in one spot. Who else really loves snap rings? I love snap rings. Not really. Not at all. We'll see if I can tap that back out because I don't want to damage my new seal going in. Got that all cleaned out. Now we're going to go ahead and install this bearing and all the seals back. Now, the original bearing that came out had a nice little stop lip on it. This one doesn't. So I'm going to watch where that installs to. So I looked at how far but that bearing was before I started nailing the new one in, or nailing the old one out rather, and it was almost to the bottom. Like there's a ledge where that bore ends, and it was almost there, and I'm almost there now. Alright, so we got the bearing in. It's all lubricated. Then we're going to go in with seal number 1. I'm using an 1.25 inch socket to drive these in. Alright, and then a washer. And then the big seal. Then the last washer. And my snap ring is perfectly lined up. If you drop your balls like I dropped my balls, let me see how many I got here, because I know I didn't drop any. 1, 2, 24. So if you drop your balls, make sure that you have 24. If you don't have 24, you're missing a ball. This thing is all kinds of gooped up. So I think I'm going to spray it outside with some carb cleaner. I'm going to go ahead and get this Teflon seal replaced. It looks like with a little bit of rotation that I will be able to get to everything that I need to get to. This just might be a bear because this is two-pieced. Those are flathead screws. So I'm just taking them one at a time, and on that piston you had a top hole and a bottom hole. We'll call them top and bottom. There's one this direction and one that direction. I'm shoving the ball bearings in there one at a time. And you can adjust this shaft as you're doing it to make sure that they are all getting lined up to where they need to be. Okay, I'm going to show you what I got going on here, just because I feel like somebody else is going to run into the same issue and accidentally pull this thing out a little bit too far. So in there I have the piston at an odd angle, so you see the gear, it's not straight like it should be. It's kicked off down at an angle, and you can see the position that I have that is so that I can slide those ball bearings in. So I've been pushing them in the top hole and the bottom hole. So I was using my magnet and pushing it into this hole until I couldn't anymore, and then I was pushing them into that hole until I couldn't anymore, and I was using a punch to push the bearings further back. And then once that was in, you could put the bottom half of the, I don't know, return channel, circle channel, whatever you want to call it. You can put that in and then put the last bearings in. Now all I have to do is put the top half on, put the retaining bracket on and 2 screws, and I'm home free. Let's see. So when you're installing those ball bearings, if you accidentally remove it, all those ball bearings fall out. There's that top hole the one that's on the upper side, if you're not watching carefully, and it caught me, the ball bearing can actually go down the path the wrong direction, and then it ends up getting bound up inside of the ball screw. So be careful of that, because then you'll be sitting there fighting, wondering why it's all bound up. So I had to take it all the way back apart and install it again, being careful of where those balls went. So now I'm just going to install this cap. What do they call it? They call it like a piston retaining cap or something. I don't know. And if we remember, when we install this ring, we want to install that one end towards where that punch hole is, so that we don't have to sit there and try to spin it the next time that we have to go in there. And that's it. I just got to put the arm back on, but I'm actually going to wait on that because I'm going to wire brush and paint both of these items. I need to order a new flex joint here. I definitely not going to use this one that looks OEM. So that's it. Any questions, just holler at me. We'll find out someday whether or not this thing works. It's going to be a little while until I get the engine in and running. I've still got to rebuild it, and there's some floor pan issues and stuff like that that I want to go through on the car. So the engine running is probably one of the last items on the list. So we'll just have to remember to check this thing for leaks when we go to try to run it. Take it easy, guys.